I'm Dr. Keith Marshall. The name of my company is called Dedicado Treatment Center. We specialize in substance abuse treatment and also co-occurring mental health disorders. So sometimes people come into treatment not only dealing with their drug addiction, but they have other mental health issues that co-occur with it. Sometimes those conditions could either be exacerbating the addiction or could be the primary cause of the addiction. So what we do here is we also do provide detox treatment. With the epidemic now going on with opioids, that's a very necessary component of treatment, is to make sure that we can also safely help clients get off the drugs so that we can now teach them the coping skills that they need to live productive lives. Well, I was actually born in the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I was born and raised in the inner city. I lived in a very low socioeconomic setting, as we call it, the ghetto. My mother was in school at the time to become a nurse while we were actually living in Germantown. I was an athlete in high school. I ran track, I played football, and I think it was because of the sports I was able to not be a victim, if you will, of the environment. My mother ended up getting out of school. We moved from one socioeconomic setting and to another setting. It was a drastic difference because we had come from living such a poor life into something now having a little bit of money and seeing things a little differently. I graduated high school. I went on to Temple University, and unbeknown to myself at the time, I was experimenting with drugs. I can remember going into the bathroom one night just innocently trying a drug called cocaine, and everyone knows about that drug. And without even knowing, the drug did something for me that at the time, it was unbeknown, it was covering up and ameliorating, if you will, certain stressors of my life. And part of that was just low self-worth and low self-esteem. And so, like I said, unbeknown, I decided to, as we were going out every weekend, I started, I guess, doing a little bit of cocaine without my own understanding of what the drug would do. It simply became a habit, which then became an addiction. I ended up dropping out of school. I was in class one day and I can remember having cocaine in the car, and I dropped out of school and simply went into the car, got the coke, and never went back. I also had a lot of gifts, so I was able to continuously find jobs, if you will, in environmental services, housekeeping, maintenance operations. And so over time, I was able to mask the addiction many times because I could simply go to work, I could clean up, had these, I guess, the gift of gab, if you will, and was able to maintain those type of jobs for a while, lose it, and get another one. I was successful doing that for a while, if you want to call that successful. The reality of it is I was living in a personal prison. Over time, I ended up going into treatment centers, not only in Philadelphia, but I ended up in some treatment centers right out here in California. And the story goes, I ended up staying out here at one time instead of going back home because I had burnt many bridges. Long story short, addiction took me to the road of hell. I lived in abandoned buildings. I lived on the streets of Philadelphia. I lived also on the streets of LA. I was shot in the head, point blank range. I got stabbed about 17 times. And there were so many other near-death situations and so many other really powerful negative consequences that came as a result of my addiction. Well, you know, one day back in 2003, I was in the bed having a real powerful experience. Others would have probably thought I was hallucinating, but I believe that my God saw me suffering and afraid to die. And I thought I saw demons around me, and I could remember praying and asking God to deliver me, but I was too afraid to get on the floor and pray because I thought that if I got on the floor and prayed, my faith told me that I showed my honor to God. And so I mustered up the faith. I jumped out of the bed, I hit my knees, and I just asked God to simply, look, please, at this point, free me or kill me. And I think at that point was my point of surrender, because when I said free me or kill me, there was no more in between. I stopped the debating with this so-called God thing. I wanted God to deliver me or kill me because I was too afraid to kill myself. Subsequently, I fell asleep. which I found out later on as I went back to school, that norepinephrine and epinephrine are neurotransmitters in the brain that are like for fight or flight responses. In other words, it's pretty much impossible to fall directly to sleep after smoking crack cocaine or snorting cocaine because of the influx of these neurotransmitters. Well, I went to sleep. I woke up the next morning. I threw the pipe away and I threw the drug away, which I seen also as a miracle because as a dope fiend at the time, you know, I'm going to probably smoke and get done and then say, hey, God, help me. Well, something different happened. I threw the drugs away. I ended up getting a job the very next day at a gym, which was really powerful because within 3 months, I became the #1 trainer there, and I decided to open up my own training business. Doing this without any desires, doing this without any cravings, doing this without any trying to fight, if you will, staying away from what I had done for the prior 20 years. And so I found this very, very compelling that I didn't want drugs anymore. And so someone prompted me to go back to school, and so I went back to school. I enrolled at Glendale College, and I was afraid, of course, to do it because I hadn't been to school in about 20 years. I was 40 years old. And so I decided to challenge myself and go back to school anyway. I ended up getting my degree in alcohol and drug study, a certificate in alcohol and drug study, became a drug and alcohol counselor. But something had happened. I decided I wanted more. And so I graduated at the top of my class there with straight A's and went on to Pacific Oaks College in Pasadena. And I got my bachelor's degree in human development, my master's degree in human development with an emphasis in marriage and family therapy, because at first I was going to complete the marriage and family therapy program and get licensed as a therapist. But my ego actually worked for me at this point. I decided that I would rather have a doctorate than have a license in marriage and family therapy. And so I graduated Pacific Oaks College with a straight 4.0 average, went on to the Chicago Professional School of Psychology. And again, I graduated at the top of my class there with about maybe 6 other African American students out of a class of 300 who graduated with a doctorate. I got my doctorate in clinical psychology. I was also certified, as I am now, a level 5 addictions treatment counselor, and probably one of maybe a handful in the country of black owners who happens to be a doctor and certified in addictions who also owns a treatment center. Our treatment center, so I opened up Dedicato Treatment Center a few years ago. The way it happened was nothing short of a miracle. Someone came into my life who saw what I was doing, fronted some money, and tried to get involved in it. And more importantly, what it really happened was they fronted some money and believed that they could live off my gift. And what happened, a chain of events happened. I ended up buying out the company for myself. And as Dedicato stands now, I am the CEO and owner of the company. Since opening the company, I've had my struggles here in Sierra Madre. As you know, this is not the most friendly town, I don't think, for African Americans, but more importantly because I am a treatment center. There's a lot of stigmas and things that were brought about based on me being in the community. But I am happy to say that since Dedicato Treatment Center has been in Sierra Madre, the property that we took over has actually brought more peace to the community than some of the fear and some of the stigmas that was attached to us opening up a treatment center in Sierra Madre, if you will. So today we currently have a staff of 15 employees. Our job, like I said, basically is to, if there's this ideal of selling hope, our ideal and our mission is not only to sell hope, but to really teach people how to live again. Many times the substance abuse and the addictive behaviors that go behind substance abuse are learned behaviors. And so when people get off of drugs, there is another learning that has to take place, and that is, one, to unlearn some of the things that they have learned that were not only not so appropriate, as we call them addictive behaviors, but very maladaptive and very pervasive sometimes in other people's lives. So not only do we help them remove the addiction, because that's really nothing but the symptom anyway, our biggest job here is to help them cope, help them to learn how to live life and to ameliorate some of those stresses in life in a more appropriate fashion, in a healthy manner. Look at the underlying causes of the addiction. Look at the things that maybe the patient can't see, and help them to make proper interpretation of some of the things that might have happened in the past, to develop and give them the low self-esteem and the low self-worth that many of them come in with, and to help them to develop a more healthy sense of self. Expose them to other community factors like some of the 12-step stuff. If there are people that don't believe in 12-step but use religion, if you will, as a way for spiritual development, we want to inspire them to not only get involved in these type of social things, but to actually practice the tenets that these religions or some of these other social support networks use in order to help people live right.